Now what I'm going to do is just introduce for you what's happening in the social care cooperatives area. There's quite a lot happening around the world. It is starting to happen here. Oh, wait, I'll give out the presentation, I think. Now I've got a text-based presentation there. It's really, I've sort of set it up as a kind of how-to manual. Some of it we could go through later on if you want to do a workshop on how to set one up or how to move from where the position you're in now to something that might secure jobs in future. The reason I'm here is George approached me about issues arising from the responses to the privatisation of home care, basically. What can be done as that occurs. Home care does control something like 70 or 80% of the home care market. As it moves to a private provider, you know, that will lead to major changes in the industry. How do we respond, basically? Because I certainly think that home care will shrink. No matter who the current the new owner is, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for more locally based services. And I'd say by the year 2020, you'll probably see a number of alternative business models operating in the sector, including staff-owned cooperatives. And I think you know, we can set a path for that from here. So yeah, there will be a growth of cooperatives in the social care sector. This will be driven by two issues. Or there'll be two forms, basically. One will be the consumer-directed care cooperative that will become common in disability services, the NDIS. There's already some family groups starting to consider how they would become the providers of their own care rather than simply having a portable system from, you know, existing service providers that are not-for-profits or whatever. They want to run their own care, and they'll do that through self-directed care cooperatives. The other one is employee-owned cooperatives, or businesses that operate in the home care industry. They will provide consumers who will pay for their services, basically. So those two kinds of co-ops, by 2020, you will see many of, not many, but certainly they'll be starting to come into place by 2020. The third impact will be with public service mutuals, which Employee Ownership Australia is working with the new Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals to set up. This is where units within the public sector spin out of the public sector into employee-owned cooperatives to deliver the service that was formerly delivered within the public sector. They're common in the Northern Hemisphere. There's 100 of them in the UK. They employ something like 35,000 employees, turnover £1.5 billion, you know, mostly in the health services area, but there's a number starting to set up in social care and other forms of what were formerly public sector provided services. They are going to be the future. Now, a lot of this is being driven by the digital revolution. We need, the old institutions will break down, as you're starting to see. There will be rapidly developing change. Much of it will be as a result of, you know, consumers having more say in what occurs, and they will be using technology to do that. So the response, the market response, will be new forms of organisation that will come about. Those that get in first, those that have the deeper pockets, are going to be able to do it. Certainly those with the deeper pockets are going to be some of the multinationals that you're now wanting to take over home care. Your competitive advantage will be what they don't have, and that's local relationships. If you can build on those local relationships and build it into relational care, then you're going to have, you know, something that you can do locally that will beat the big guys at their own game. And that's where employee ownership comes in, because employee ownership also has a number of advantages there, which the big guys won't offer. Now, some of the examples around seeing of this sort of digital change, you know, look at what Uber's doing to the taxi industry, what Airbnb is doing to the hotel industry, all driven, you know, through your phone, basically. People are going to have choice, and they're going to want services. And as I was just talking to Robin about, I mean, those, you know, by 2020, carers and brokers within the industry will be able to select services for the person, who hopefully will have a kind of a smart card to pay for it. It'll be very much driven by the consumer need and you know, and the quality of the service, basically what you have to offer, at what price, and how it all fits together. So yeah, this little handout's basically a how-to on how to do it. How do we move to the social cooperative aspect? Now, just on this, on the public service mutual side, Kevin Andrews released the white paper on public service mutuals on the 5th of September. There was a green paper before that. It does define what is seen to be, reforms in the delivery approach for social services. It's a really interesting document, particularly his foreword on how, it is seen that things will move ahead from here, and the new way of servicing through interconnected consumer-driven services. There's also a really excellent report that came out from the UK recently called Many to Many, how the state will work through relationships in future. It builds on, I guess, what people are starting to do now, but it is a bit of a challenge to some of the other areas of activity like impact investing and investor-driven things. It's a really different approach, and I think it's really suited to the aged care and disability care industry. So we're going into the presentation. Yeah, what is a co-op? The first thing is you've got to know it's a business. It's not a charity and it's not a not-for-profit. It services its members. It's set up for member benefit, and they are focused on needs, but they also are driven by the collective desires of its members, and it needs to survive in a marketplace. It's not anti-market, it's not anti-capital, it's a different form of business, but it works in a different way. Okay, next one. This is just continuing on that theme of what co-ops are. I mean, you probably know about co-ops anyway. One member, one vote, all those kind of things. A very different way of doing business. It's about democratising the workplace, democratising profits. Very different to the private sector businesses that might be preferred by some within the government at the moment, but it is part of an international movement. There's billions of members around the world of various cooperatives. You and I are probably members of several, including mutuals of various sorts. They're not unusual, there's plenty of them around, they're not old-fashioned, they're not out of date, and they're going to make a comeback, particularly the employee-owned form. They're driven by international principles. That's the next one. 7 international principles that have guided cooperatives for some time. It's written into the Co-ops Act in New South Wales. Every co-op member should know them, and they're applied within the co-op. They're not set up for private profit, of course, and they are supposed to work together for the better of the community. The next one, there's several types of co-op. You're probably aware of them. It's the numbers 2, 3 and 4 that would most interest us in the aged care industry. Self-directed care co-ops will be consumer-owned. The worker-owned ones will be the kind of home care option. There'll also be a range of multi-stakeholder cooperatives that are both consumer and worker-owned, which might provide a range of services with the preferences of the various stakeholders involved. The last lot are harder to run to balance the various preferences. Okay, this is what I was talking to George about. Why do we want social care cooperatives? The first reason is, if government is going to move out of home care, what's going to be the response? There's going to be an opportunity there, and I think it needs to be taken up, particularly for local, those working in local home care branches. I mean, they will, if they do get the opportunity to move out of the home care branch into a new business that they can set up themselves, they will be able to take the clients with them under the proposed directions to come in by, 2018. So there is no, unfortunately, if home care is privatised with a big multinational, they will be able to set up the new systems which might crowd out the local operator. So the earlier the start is made, the better, in my view, towards local provision of care, locally owned provision of care. The second one is market failure. Well, that I think is occurring in a way, and that consumers are starting to say we want better care, we want it in a different way, and we want more control over our own care. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about home care and the quality of its care. I mean, there's a lot of unhappy customers of home care, as you're probably aware. They would like to have an opportunity probably to be serviced by somebody else, so long as that's, you know, servicing is better quality and just as secure as it was in the past. And I think, you know, the evidence arising from staff-owned cooperatives overseas is they actually do that far better than either not-for-profits or state-owned services. And finally, the key issue is casualisation. I mean, as consumers start to control the industry, the workers' response will be, we need to have secure jobs, we need to set up workplaces where we can do that. And we're not just a body hire industry that, you know, comes and goes with the whim of consumers or other providers, basically. So the best response to that is to collectively organise into your own workplace and own and operate it. Okay, what will the market look like? I've really just gone through that. I mean, there'll be startups, there'll be public service mutuals. A lot of this will be driven by the marketisation policies, which I think were described by Kevin Andrews in that report just in September. Individualised funding will certainly give consumers more power, more say over, you know, how services are provided and how they're paid for. And I think that, yeah, the home care, it'll be interesting to see what happens to home care if it does come under one of the multinationals, because I've had a look at the home care balance sheet of late, and I mean, it is really an operation that's it's got incredible liabilities and no assets, so somebody's going to have big pockets to turn it around. And I don't think that it will be able to maintain its market share. I think it will shrink rapidly, and I think it will shrink rapidly as to other providers come into play that are, as I said, better owned, better operated, and with better local relationships. And I think it'd be good to see that monopoly go anyway. Yeah, now the benefits. This is basically the case for staff-owned cooperatives. It's fairly much the case for employee ownership generally. Employee owners tend to do things better. It's, you know, their business, they know how to operate it, they don't have to carry heavy overheads. They work together to provide solutions. The frontline staff develop better relationships with customers and local services, and wider relationships at that. They have better knowledge of what goes on and who the people are. They have, they're far more representative of their own communities. And I think they're more committed, and they feel, you know, more at liberty to do things better. And certainly I think that's the results arising out of the staff cooperatives around the world. So what have we got? There's some examples. Sunderland Home Care Associates is one of the best known ones around because of the awards it wins. It's been in operation since the 90s. There's a report there that was written some years ago on how they were set up and how they were structured. It arose out of the worker cooperative movement. It's driven by a highly dynamic woman called Margaret Elliott, who was Social Entrepreneur of the Year in the UK in 2011. But Sunderland Home Care was also Social Enterprise of the Year in 2006. It's grown. It has now about 250 staff, but it's now part of a network under the banner of Caring and Sharing Associates, which is like a franchise arrangement. Does all the back office work for 4 or 5 Sunderland Home Cares now in different locations. Has 650 employees. It turns over several £1 million. And it's an award winner. I mean, it's highly dynamic. Its staff share in the business. They share in the what profits it makes. They own a share in the business, and they're highly committed to it. And it's a very interesting case study on how you can take this kind of industry forward, and it's beating the opposition in what it does, particularly local authority services. The second one is Cooperative Home Care Associates. It actually arose out of the trade union movement. Again, the trade union movement in the US wanted to combat, you know, the process of casualisation and body hire, and it formed a co-op that now employs 2,500 employees. They're much better paid. I think they're the highest paid employees in the industry. It doesn't carry a lot of overheads. They're not providing shareholder returns, and they've done a lot in financial literacy area. A lot of their employees are low income. A lot of them have savings for the first time. A lot of them are paying taxes for the first time, and there's a strong ethic of education involved in it as well. It's primarily black and Hispanic in terms of its employees, but it's a very empowering workplace, and those who are involved in it are highly committed to what they're doing. And it has very good support, of course, from the union movement, because that's the kind of operation that they like to see now. Cooperative Home Care Associates in New York is being copied in a number of other states in the US, and some of those are becoming award winners as well. Cooperative Home Care Associates was the Best for the World B Corporation in 2012. I don't know if you know what B Corps are, but for social benefit corporations, they're a new form of accreditation, and it's becoming a new form of legal structure in the US as well. And of course you've got the Italian social care cooperatives. That's just absolutely huge, and virtually the entire aged and disability industry are run through local cooperatives, whether employee-owned, or stakeholder-owned, or consumer-owned. Most of them have, they're quite, I think the median employee numbers are like 30 per co-op, so I mean they're not small, they've been around for a while, they've grown. 90% of them get through their first 5 years, so they're capable of scale, and they do have a few tax advantages for what they do. The government really supports them, and that's, I guess, the model that lots of the other ones that are looking to take off elsewhere are looking to for leadership. And finally, we have Robin's outfit, the staff-owned co-op called Cooperative Home Care. So how will we respond? I guess, the choice will come down to those already in the industry. In a way, you're going to have to tick each of those questions. What do you want to do to secure your futures? Things are going to change. They're not going to change rapidly, but by 2020, it'll be a different industry. What do you think you'll need to do? I think all of you would believe that you can do all of those things better if you were working together, in a new organisation that is market-focused and aimed at addressing local servicing. Not-for-profits, I think, will shrink in the industry unless they are able to change their cultures. And local for-profits will come into play, but I think if you want to be continuing the kind of culture that has become part of HACC, then you'll need to form your own organisations to do that, in my view. And there will be gaps, there's no doubt about it, there'll be gaps to fill. And you can move to fill them, as Sunderland Home Care does. It's moved just not only to providing home care, it's now also involved in disability services and providing work for people with disability as well. Okay, how do you start? What do you need to do? First, you're going to have to be an entrepreneur, and that's not a social entrepreneur, the kind of local hero. You're going to have to work in a group, because you're going to need to form a group to be the co-op. That involves, what we call cooperative entrepreneurship. It's a fairly well-studied area of entrepreneurship. It's not popular in Australia for some reason. I guess the social entrepreneurs have taken over the field. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to make hard decisions. It will require leaders. People are going to have to drive it. It's going to take time. As Robin found, it took 18 months to get her co-op off the ground, and there was a lot of work involved in it, and a lot of effort. People aren't going to put this on a plate for you. You're going to have to do it and make it work. The big employers, they will want to retain their share. They will want to do things the same as they've done in the past, but I think unless they change rapidly, they're going to find that they're not going to get the clients. And that's where the institutional resistance comes in. You'll find that there will be a lot of barriers put in front of new organisations coming about, because people will want to preserve the way they've done things in the past, basically. And it's a big culture shift, of course. You're going to be owning and operating your own service. It's going to be market-based, but you're going to be doing it in a group. It's not a private benefit business. So you want to be a cooperative entrepreneur. I've gone through this fairly extensively. I'm not going to go through it, point by point. It's on the handout. But I think if you think it's the way to go, or some of you think it's the way to go, and you think you can form a group on it, I'd be quite happy to do a workshop on the kind of next steps you've got to do. I mean, if you think you can fulfill some of this cooperative entrepreneur aspect, the next steps are going to be how to organise the members and how to do a business plan, and they're the next parts of the of the presentation. Being a cooperative entrepreneur is very different. You've got to make the breakthroughs, but you've got to make them as a group. There's a range of attributes. Determination, particularly street smarts, all those kind of things. I'm sure you've all done it yourselves, and you know that you can do it if you're given the opportunity. But you must work together with others. It's not about forming your own business. Specific attributes, of course, are fairly much the same as in any entrepreneur. You've got to have the willingness to crash through or crash in a way. But you're not in this just for your own benefit. It's a social outcome you're after, and that's often what drives it. It's the payoff is the success of the co-op. The how-to steps, well, the first one is defining the need for the co-op. I've gone through some of those other needs. One of the ones will be, if you want to avoid casualisation, you're going to have to form this, worker-owned entity. That's the primary need. Second need is you want to provide a social care service that's better than the others. And, that's really what will drive your determination to make the new entity work. Organising the members is the first part. You can't do a co-op without members. You need a minimum of 5 to start it. If they're in it for the employment, then you're going to have to be a fairly reasonably sized operation to offer them employment. The second step is doing a business plan. A business plan is something that is not about being a promotional brochure. It's actually, if you want to be a commercial entity, you've got to do a business plan, because a business plan is essential to getting anybody to trade with you on credit, anybody to supply to you, and anybody to allow you to be financed. Particularly for working capital. You've got to go to the bank for an overdraft. You'll need a business plan, or it'll need to make sense. So the next part was about defining the need. As I said, I think this is a workshop on its own, but you really need to figure out how you're going to pull people together who are going to sign up for the co-op. It's probably the most important aspect. Most cooperatives fail because of lack of commitment by the members, and about half of them will get through the first 5 years in Australia, which is a much lower rate than elsewhere. But it's a much better rate than the private sector, of course. So it's a key aspect is, who are you pulling together, who's signing up for it, and how they're going to work together to make it work. So that's I've written that all out as a kind of how-to. If you can follow it, you think you want to proceed with something, then I'm really happy to work with you on it. The next step is the business plan. There's a lot of technical stuff in that. If you've got a business background, you'll understand most of it. If you don't, then you might need to educate yourself a bit about it. What you do need to do one is, because that's the guide for your startup. Does it always work? But you need to know what's not working and why, and that's what the plan is all about. Now, I've seen many business plans that are going out, say, to these social enterprise development funds. Many of them are promotion approaches, make no sense at all to the reality of their futures. Most of those in the social enterprise area that have produced business plans, the business plan is they're not reaching what was intended in the plan, but at least they know why, so that's the usefulness of having a plan. The next step is getting registered. Getting registered is after you've organised your members and after you've got your business plan. You fill in the forms, which are on the internet, they're the links. You submit it to the Registry of Cooperatives, and a couple of weeks later you should get a reply saying you're either in or out, or they've got more questions. It's not that hard to get registered bureaucratically. The hard bit is doing the work to form the co-op. If you jump into registration first, you'll probably get knocked out because you haven't got the other work done, basically. Practical tools, there's a number of guides around. There's a manual that was written for the International Year of Cooperatives in 2012. It's quite extensive, it's very comprehensive. It's available on the internet. There's also a new report out on social cooperatives from Co-ops UK, which only came out in July. That's available as well. It's more a policy document. Caring and Sharing Associates, Dr. Guy Turnbull from Sunderland Home Care was out here a couple of months ago, and indeed he was out here just a couple of weeks ago. They did a presentation for the social enterprise sector on social care cooperatives. That presentation is the one that's there. It is about how Sunderland Home Care started, how it grew, how it operates, what its business processes are, and how the franchise operates to create new cooperatives. And I think Robin's looking at maybe adopting part of that franchising process, because it's got, from their experience, they know how to do it, and it's much easier to buy a manual from somebody else who's done it, particularly on back office and rostering and all the kind of stuff that you've got to make good technically, than try and recreate it yourself. There's heaps of documents around on employee ownership and social care. I think George has distributed many of them. They're worth a read just to see the variety of what's happening. But as you can see, it's very different to the HACC program as it is. I mean, it's not a funded, service provider driven industry. And finally, this was for George's benefit. He wanted to know what the economic and social benefits of worker co-ops are. So I defined them. I mean, obviously, you've got community wealth being, the prosperity of the co-op is important. Job security is the key for most people involved in employee-owned social care. It's certainly job security that's, offering better quality work than either private provider or sort of body hire. And the social benefits are, well, I mean, they're not hard to see. If you're controlling your own destiny, you've got, a fair amount of control over the way you do things, a lot more dignity. And finally, you're part of a movement. You're not on your own. There's many hundreds of co-ops around in Australia. Not a lot of worker co-ops, but they're all working to the same principles, and they're all prepared to help. The new Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals had its national summit on Tuesday this week, which was well attended. It's funded primarily by the big co-ops, but big co-ops finally got on the agenda of the G20 over the weekend. They were part of the B20 group, and the business diversity is now a case that's being carried forward. No longer, can we say that the economy will be just, private or public. There will be a third way, and it will be the cooperative way, and it will start to get a lot of attention. And finally, before Robin takes over, there were just a few questions which I thought would lead into the theme that we've been doing, and maybe there's some of the things that Robin can address, or maybe you want to ask questions about. So I'll turn it over to Robin.
Okay. Thank you. Good overview. I probably should have read your thing before I did. It's perfect going to link here. Do you want me to sit there?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I started out life as an aged care worker, and after I got divorced and found I needed a flexible employment, and after working in the city, and I thought I hate this and I can't see my kids or whatever, I decided that aged care would be the go. So trained online, and then went and worked for some agency staff which probably provided HACCs and veteran services and things like that. And I was disgusted, absolutely disgusted at the level of care and the level of follow through and that was received by these clients, because you didn't really, if you did see a problem, then you couldn't do anything about it, because the levels of bureaucracy that were there to get anything done was too much time. So I decided that what was probably needed was some case management, some case coordination. So I went off and did my own case management, and then had private clients. And after, I was quite busy doing that, and then I realised I needed staff, but didn't want to become an agency as, what I'd seen and worked for. So I started looking overseas as to what else was in the social care sector that was working, and I stumbled across Sunderland Home Care Associates, which I think Alan mentioned before, and I'll just leave it there, I'll come back to it. And so I just started looking at what they did, and then started looking around in Australia to see what was in our cooperative sector, and there wasn't anything really in social care. I do know that I think there's some representatives here of the aged care, child care cooperative. Is that right? No?
No,
No,
not exactly. It's a community service, a children disability.
Yeah. So I think they were they are a social care cooperative, but they're very few off the ground. So there wasn't anybody to really go off or lead off or anything like that. So I sort of took a bit of, what was overseas and started to ask questions about what we could do here. Since then it's become a lot more easy because there's been so much more interest in it, and there's the formation of the BCCM, and I think people that have got sort of cooperative minded are coming out and speaking, and now they're putting toolkits together, and there's a lot more advocacy, I suppose, for the cooperative. So it's much easier, I think, now to get that process than that started than when I did, which was only 3 years ago. So we are started as Australian Independent Living Enterprise, and that is our mutual, I suppose, our umbrella. Then underneath that we have small self-managed care teams, which is the Cooperative Home Care, which is our trading name. And we have those in local LPAs, so we've got one in Campbelltown at the moment. We have one in the Inner West. We're also looking at getting one, we're starting to put one in Western Sydney, northern suburbs, and anywhere where there's some clients and there's a need for those, but I'll talk a bit about that later. So we are a cooperative, we're a worker-owned cooperative. If I go to the next one. We're a worker-owned cooperative, and how I started was I put out a call to people that I knew, an email, if anybody that was interested. So we're talking about how to get members. Anyone that was interested in changing the status quo, I suppose, of what was out there at the moment. And I don't know where I got these contacts from, and I can't remember, but I think anybody who was interested in aged care, I just put a bulk email out with a probably very poorly worded, because I'm dyslexic, thing, that said who's interested in coming. So I got 5 interested ladies who worked pretty much in those areas that I've said, that all came to my house, and we sat around a kitchen table for nearly 18 months, once a month, to meet and discuss our business plan, pretty much. What it was, what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. And so we formed a bit of a bond after that. We got our registration papers through with the help of a lawyer, which we did have to pay. That was pretty much our only cost. We started with no funding. We started with nothing. We had no, I think I lent $2,000 and put it into the cooperative, and that was it. So when we started seeing clients, and because of the business I had before, some of them came over, and you have a bit of a reputation, so you can take those clients that you have. And I think these days, with the way that the individual budgets are going, the clients are going to start to have choice. So that's probably been one of our difficulties, is getting the clients. So that's changing, and I think Bring It On, it's going to be really, really great for people in the industry, and also I think for the service users themselves. So we started then, I think after another 6 or 7 months, we moved into an office, so we actually had space. And we started a training program, because we thought, well, where are we going to get our members from? And what we really were looking at was trying to get rid of the poor quality jobs and the poor quality care which was out there. So we thought that the way to do that would be to put these jobs as high quality jobs. So that means that they're going to be paid more, that they have a say in how the business is going to be run, that they've got some ownership in the business, and that they're valued as staff. They also then can become members of the cooperative. So that was sort of our whole education as to how we would get these people in. So now we started a program called Training to Careers, where we took people that were not didn't have certificate 3s, and we trained them up with the help of a registered training organisation, and then they became our first employees, and we've still got 100% of those people in our organisation nearly a year later. So that's, we have, our turnover is very low, we have this staff commitment. That Training to Careers program is a weeding out of the undesirables, the people that don't want to be in a cooperative, don't have the commitment, don't have the same visions and values, and that, is something that happens along the way. And we have a process where you join us as a casual, you work for 6 months, which is a probationary period. At the end of that 6 months, you've had education about what a cooperative is, what our values are, also work quality, things like that, and then you get offered membership. And people, our benchmark is we want to have 100% membership from our staff. We're probably sitting at about, I suppose, 90 at the moment. We've got about 20 staff, so that's fairly good, you know, but that's one of our benchmarks, is to try to get the people converted over. And how we do that is we offer an incentives program, which I'll talk about a bit later. So what do we do? What do we provide? We provide home support, but we also do, so that's social support, domestic assistance, personal care, but we also do relocation services, things of that. Okay. And we're not funded at the moment, though we've got approvals in. So we've got approval for aged care pending, we've got approval for ADAC pending, we've also got approval for worker contingent home care pending. So we've also got a grant from DSS pending for community hubs. So we've sort of worked on those things in the past year. As I said, we followed the models that were out there. So this is Care and Share Associates is the one in the UK, and Cooperative Home Care Associates is the one in the Bronx. And Alan mentioned those. So you're not really building something new, you're just creating something that's already there, but putting it into an Australian context, because we do have a unique funding system at the moment. It is changing, probably coming more like the UK model, I suppose, but it has got to be tweaked a bit for the Australian context. So, the needs for the social care, or it's a cooperative model in social care. I mean, I suppose you're all used to what's, you just don't know, for a bit, I'll put a few minutes. I think you're probably all aware of the insufficiencies, I suppose, of the current system and why it's changing and things like that, and the need for new jobs and what Alan mentioned before. And it's also very much, I think, now, and what we've come across is this idea that the customer is first, you know, or the client is first. And our dealing, and I think George wanted me to mention the difficulties that we've had, and coming at from a different sort of mindset. What we've seen in the industry dealing with a lot of organisations is that people think it's their money. The organisations think it's their money. And I think what has to happen is it isn't your money, it's that person's money. And so you need to make sure that you can give them the best value for money that that's going to offer. So that means cutting your overheads, cutting your administration costs, being really aware. And that's what all these tools are coming in, you know, get your unit cost down. Because in a sense, it isn't your money. Yes, you do get employed by it, but in a sense, it's that person's money that needs it because they're vulnerable in the community, and that's why they've got it. And I have had such difficulty in getting that through to various people that I have to deal with, because they're saying, I can't meet at that time, I can't do this, I can't, you know, and it's like, well, actually, you're working for this person, so if they call, they don't get up until 2 because of their medications or whatever, then you have to be there at 2, not at 10 when they won't answer the door. So it's this whole adjustment, you know, and I think doing it as a group of people that understands that is probably a little bit easier, which is why the cooperative is great, because you've all got like-minded people that are all thinking the same, working through the problems that you've got, and you've got sort of a united voice in how to do that. So how do we do that? And I suppose this is the strength of the cooperatives, is that all of the money that we make is recycled back into the cooperative. So very much like a not-for-profit, but very much like we keep a percentage for a rainy day, and then the rest, so that's a reserve, but the rest of it is for business development, and it's also for incentive programs so that we can keep our staff committed. So that's higher wages, you know, benefits that they might want. And we've just had our AGM, and so we, as a group, we just sat around a table like this, and it was a show of hands. Who thinks we should do the incentive program and further that and spend X amount of money? You know, unanimous support. Who thinks we should do this? Yes, unanimous support. But we had discussions along the way about what we were doing. So it's very much a collaborative and democratic process of getting things that would make our business better for us as employees. Okay, next one. So worker and cooperative. So it doesn't show up very well, but none of those things do. So again, I think what Alan was mentioning, the principles, international principles of a cooperative are very much grounding, I suppose, what the movement is, and I suppose a little bit of history going back. It's not a new idea. A guy called Robert Owens pioneered cooperatives in the 19th century in Scotland. His example inspired a group in Rockdale, which is probably, if you ever read anything about cooperatives, you'll probably find the Rockdale cooperative mentioned, and they had development. They set up a shop and it was owned and run by the customers. Very similar to, I suppose, your food co-ops and things like that you heard of. You know, you might be aware of Alfalfa House and those places. The consumer cooperative prospered and became a cooperative wholesale society, and then it's gone into supermarkets and department stores in the UK or just in Scotland?
UK,
very, very big in the UK. So this sort of word caught on, and it went to Spain in the 1950s, and a radical Catholic priest read his ideas and encouraged the local workers to set up Mondragon cooperatives, which some people might have heard of. Today there are over 200 businesses. They're a work-owned cooperative, and they employ 50,000 people, so they're huge. I think they're in the Basque region of Spain. So they exist all around the world. It's just that they're not that common here. And I suppose what we're trying to do is say they work in this industry in particular, and the principles that we sort of work off are open membership. You don't have to be in it, you know. So you get a choice to be in it. At the end of 6 months, you say yes, do you want to come in, or no, we want everybody mostly to come in, but they don't have to. If they do come in, they get the incentive. So why wouldn't they? One member, one vote. So we don't have any shares, but everybody has a vote. So when we sit around our table, you know, your hand is as good as my hand, you know, in the voting. And you all get a position on the board where the board is run by the employees. We have an advisory group that sits outside that helps us make the decisions, so that's accountants, lawyers, those type of people. But it's very much an employee run, because we're the people that are doing the work and we know how this business should run. We just need advice coming in from some people every now and again. We can run a really tight ship. That's one of the best things, that we can provide a really good service to our clients because we're very streamlined. We're independent. Education is huge for us. And there's also this cooperation between cooperatives. So you've got an extra body there that helps you just because you're a cooperative. So, you know, and we're also into sustainable development. So we really do want to be around for the long haul. So that's next one. And that sort of tells you a bit about what I was speaking about. The next one is we've converted those principles into our 7 C's for our values, and they're courage, consideration, consistency, clarity, commitment, capacity, and competence. And we train every 2 weeks on those. You know, courage, you know, why are we doing this? How are we doing it? It's a bit different. Get out there, do it, you know. Even if it's difficult, it doesn't really matter. Consideration, that we consider it to both our staff and our clients. It's very, very important. Our motto is quality jobs, quality care, and they're very much entwined. And if we discover difficulties, which we do quite a bit in dealing with clients and their families, as you probably have experienced, we always come back to treating our staff with respect, courtesy. These are all things that are really important to us out there in community, because our staff are what provide the quality care. And if they're not going to be provided with that ability to do that, then they're not going to be able to provide the quality care, and that just goes down the line. So we're very, very supportive of our staff. We're consistent. What our aim is that if you have a carer, then they stay with you for, you know, however long. We try to match 2 people, two of our staff workers with a client, so that if anybody's sick, and that's worked really well depending on the hours that they've got, so that they'll always know a face, and especially with dementia coming through, the idea that you can just have anybody turning up to a dementia client or customer is not on, because they don't know who they are, they think they're a robber, they're not going to let them shower them, you know, so that is actually a waste of money, so why do it, you know. So we've managed to pull people out of residential aged care facilities with very, very high-end dementia and keep them at home, safe, no hospital visits. So it can be done. You just need a committed workforce. So how do you do that? Support them. Clarity, we're very transparent. Everybody knows how much we earn. Part of our training is open book management system. So every month we bring up our figures, we see how much is coming in and what's going out. Very simple business system, so everybody can understand it. So you can start to begin to understand what a business is, because it's, you know, clients in, a bit of admin, you know, wages out. So very easy. And we're also very transparent with our, where we get funding next year. What we're doing with those individual budgets will be very, you know, we'll bring up the spreadsheets and say this is what you're doing, this is how much it costs this year. Committed. We've got a really committed workforce, as I said, very low staff turnover, very low levels of absenteeism. I don't think we've had anybody call in sick, you know, so it's been great. We're capacity building at the moment, and I'll talk to you about that. We're talking to the UK mob so that they can come and show us what they've done, so we can introduce that here as a sort of a social franchise model. And we're competent, so we're in the process now of doing all of our paperwork for our quality management system. So we're booked in with ISO for accreditation, audit, and then third-party verification after that. So making sure that we've got all those boxes ticked, you know, which I think you need in this industry, especially if you're out there. It's expensive, but I think it's worth having that, you know, little tick there if that's what they give you. Okay, so I think we've talked about the principles. So what makes us different? So I don't really like verbs, so I put pictures up instead. So it brings, so what makes us different? So the owners of the staff, so they all own the business. So it's their imperative to put their effort in, because if they put their effort in, they're going to get it at the end, because, you know, their wages will increase. You know, there's so many benefits of having that. They also get to see the same person, so they have a continuity of care with that client, so they can, you know, go through their life with them, whether or not that's disability or whether or not that's aged care. That's a really, really important thing, because most carers go into this business, paid carers go into this business because they want to make a difference. That's why they do it. So why jeopardise that by giving them a crap job? Encourage it, make it, you know, part of a benefit for them, and that's very much part of our education process to support that. Characteristic, I suppose. We do the open bookkeeping, so we are very transparent between our staff, but also between our clients. We have a low staff turnover, low level of absentees, and we've got really motivated and enthusiastic staff that would like. They talk cooperatives all the time, so it's not really a job. It becomes more than a job, I suppose. So if you get me to talk about cooperatives, I talk about it. Now, next picture. This is our model. So we have the crews that we call them crews, so that they're not. It's based on self-managed teams, but we call them crews, and sort of like a ship, you know. We like the idea of the ship, you know, sailing smoothly through the waters of change, you know. And the support crews are based on 5 to 12 people, and they're in a local LPA, and so we're wanting to replicate those wherever. So the maximum is 12 people within that group, and they can provide care possibly up to 30 to 40 clients, but it's more based on the hours that they bring in. So we think it's about 150 hours a week will be a sustainable group. So how they get that, it might be one individual client, or it might be a whole lot of clients, but they all live within the same LPA. So you get rid of travelling, you get rid of you know, not knowing the local area, but you get that local sense of community. And that's important, because you go to the shops and you see the other people, you know, and it becomes this really sense of community. So you're dragging that sense of community back into their care, and especially with wicked problems like social isolation, depression, not being able to see anybody, that community is really, really important. And that's what we're trying to bring together. These groups are autonomous, they manage their own care plans, they do their own rostering, they work out all of their own problems. Eventually they're going to be doing their own payroll as well. At the moment, if you go up the next level, we're headquarters. We do payroll, we do the quality management, we do the policies, we do all the records, supervision. So we manage all of those businesses. We also have a regional coach that comes down into them. So if you have any problems like conflict resolution, which always happens somewhere along the line, we come in and do conflict resolution, not only with the staff, but with the family or with whoever's doing it. So we do a lot of, we also come in and do training. So if they recognise they want dementia training or communications or hygiene or whatever, we come in and we have a training unit that comes in and does that. They also have to, or each group has to have their own meetings, and we sort of say you've got a meeting that's going to be work related, so that's where you do clients, but then we're going to have a more social meeting where we're going to talk our problems, because as carers you pick up a lot of, as paid staff you pick up a lot of the clients' problems, and you just want to discuss it, not really with your family, though you probably do, but with your other work, because they know the clients as well. We're also putting in at the moment the representative body, and this is our sort of advisory group, so that is going to be made up of staff, service users, their families, and also probably some lawyers and that. It's still in the development stage at the moment, but it's where we'd like to go to just to get that community representation, but also to get some expert advice within those areas. And then on top of that is the board, which is 5 members, and at the moment it's actually expanded. We're still 5, the original 5 people that Alan said you need to start a cooperative. And that's made up of our employees, so the care workers are on that board, and they get advice from the other ones. So, and the other one on the other side is just the level. So we're a flat structure. Nobody's anybody else's boss. You know, it's sort of, it's hard to draw it on a flat piece, but we're all pretty much on the same level. We're all doing the same, and everybody has got to have an aged care certificate or disability or community service. Certificate 3, they have to have their police checks that are providing care to the clients. And basically what we're trying to do is keep it simple. You know, it's built on trust between both the crew members and so the staff as well as the clients. And that's our idea of how we can still create this worker-owned cooperative where it's not run from a top level, because I think you're always going to get a risk of being directed down. So we're trying to think how we're going to stop doing that, and that's his idea of these, you know, self-contained, self-managed groups have a say, you know, in everything, and they can solve their own problems. So they don't need to ring me if the Meals on Wheels is going to be cancelled. They can figure it out themselves, you know. So it's sort of giving them that ownership of that, and they can solve the problems. Next one. The difficulties. I think we can probably all work them out together. We've been at it, we've been doing this now for 3 years, I suppose. We made a surplus, so it's good to have started off with no money and made a surplus. We only have user pays at the moment, and we've accessed those from New South Wales Trustees and Guardians, who are one of our clients. We are going to be applying for funding, but it's all client driven. So I think as the individual budgets come through, we're starting to have discussions with people in the family and community services circle who that individual budget's starting to go to. I must say that has been very new for them and not easy to comprehend, I suppose, but we are working through that and trying to make sure that we've got all the boxes ticked so they're happy. But people are not really sure what's happening. When you become a service provider and say, hey, we want to take on your client, they become a bit, you know, scared, I suppose. So we're trying to work through a lot of those. So our main issue, I suppose, is source to clients and how we're going to do that. But as I said, individual budgets. And did anybody hear about aged care being pushed through to individual budgets at a quicker rate than they're going to do? So that's also really good. Next one, partnerships. So I suppose if, you know, we're all about helping each other, isn't that good? I love that. So, you know, if we can give you a foot up into helping to do this, and I think Alan is the same, you know, we're cooperatives, you know, and so we work cooperatively, you know, and we do collaboration as well. So it can be a scary thing, I suppose, you know, doing this and going out on your own. But what we're trying to do is capture that local knowledge and then develop that. So if you have an idea that this is something you'd like to do, then, you know, there's two. I mean, you can either come under our umbrella because we're doing that, or you can form your own. But we're very open to discussing how these organisations are going to get a foothold, because they're providing great quality care, you know, and they're providing good jobs. So, you know, it's sort of answering two strengths. So I've got, and this comes out of another cooperative slide that Alan lent me, but it's very good. So why do it? Because it's more secure and a principled way to carry out a business idea. because it challenges the domination of people by capital, so it's not run by money, it's run by people. It promotes an environmentally responsible management. It builds on the skills and self-esteem of the people involved, because you don't have to answer to a boss, nor shoulder all the responsibilities of being boss. That is shared between everybody. You don't have to pay any shareholders. You don't have to pay them dividends because, it's recycled back into the business. That has its good points and bad points. Good points is that you can share in the dividends or share in the surpluses, I suppose, and decide what you're going to do with them. The bad point of that is if you're not doing very well, then you're going to have to take a wage cut, So it's got both ends, so pray God you're going to be good, And you can integrate political, ethical, religious principles into your work, if that's what you want to do. And that's also social as well. It's very much a social-driven enterprise. You can create employment for yourself without having to be rich first. So it's a shared principle. And you can have flexible hours and conditions that work, because you can work within your team to work out what hours you do. So any care plan that comes in for a client, you work out with your team who can do what and how that's going to be working. The other benefit of these small groups is they can fit into any culturally linguistically diverse. You can get the members of that cultural linguistic group, and you can then provide the care to those. So it's a really diverse system that you can pretty much slot into anywhere, rural or remote. That's what we're looking at as well. We've got a lot of interest in gathering people, training them that are interested in care, giving them a Certificate 3s plus all their training, and then they care for those people in that community. So, and you go off those, the needs of the community. And this is just a benefits as well. So that's my experience with cooperatives, and I hope I've enthused you a bit, and Alan as well, and educated you, because I don't think many people know about cooperatives in the social care movement, and I really think that's got to change, because there's a huge opportunity for us now, both as workers and as people providing the care, to seize this opportunity and do some really good work.